Hello and welcome to another edition of TechnoHolik. Among other things, we've got an exclusive look at a brand new gadget category for you. Let's tell you what's lined up on the show this week. IIT coaching meets iPad. We check out the all-new iProf, the netbook buying guide, including all the rules you should keep in mind. And we talk to TechCrunch.com's Sarah Lacey on the view from Silicon Valley. Well, all that and more coming up on this edition of TechnoHolik. But first, let's go across to Radhika to give us a roundup of all the interesting new launches from the world of tech.
Let's take a look at what's happening in the world of tech this week, and we're starting with LG. LG has been on a roll with new cell phones launching almost every single day. The latest is the Android-based GW620, a slide-out full QWERTY phone. This 3-inch touchscreen device runs the older version of Android 1.5 with its own customized S-Class interface, a standard audio jack, memory card support up to 32 GB and has a 5-megapixel camera. The phone also has GPRS, Edge, Bluetooth support along with FM radio. The best part about the phone is its price, just Rs 19,000. Could this be your very first affordable Android phone? The touchy-feely BlackBerry Storm is back in a new avatar called the Storm 2. Earlier showcased at CES, this phone has a 3.2-inch capacitive touchscreen with new Show Press technology for better keyboard input. Other features are almost similar to its older brother, like a 3.2-megapixel camera, access to BlackBerry App World, GPS and support for 3G. The processor is upgraded to 526 MHz and this berry will cost you Rs 32,000. With the iPhone 3GS just around the corner, which smartphone will you pick? Speakers that make your thin LCD look even better. The Mythos XTR50 is a slender 1.5-inch speaker with a home theater sound good enough to rock any room. The speakers can be wall-mounted either vertically or horizontally and look extremely sleek. But these speakers are not going to come cheap, almost $700 per piece. That's quite expensive, isn't it? If you're a fan of the Nintendo DS, then you're in for a treat. Nintendo just announced a new version of the DS and are calling it the 3DS. As the name suggests, the console will play 3D games, but get this. You will not need any 3D glasses. No more big ugly things. Sounds cool, doesn't it? More details will be revealed at E3 in June, so keep watching this space. But what do you guys think? Tell us on Twitter with some #TechnoHolik tweets. I'll be back with more tech next time.
Okay, joining me to discuss some of the latest news, including what Radhika talked about, is my fellow Technoholic, Varun Singh. Hi Varun, thanks for joining us on the show. The one gadget that Radhika didn't mention that got launched, you can check it out on our blog at technoholic.com, of course, was the Apple iPhone 3GS. And I think the reason that Radhika's decided to ignore it on purpose is that as an Apple fan, she's pretty upset that it's coming so late to India, and that too at some fairly incredulous price points.
I think it's too little, too late, and far too expensive from what I can make out, because you can actually buy a factory unlocked iPhone 3GS with 32 GB instead of 16 GB that they've launched for a lower price. So it's a really ridiculous price, and there's really no sense in buying a carrier locked version, and that too an Airtel locked version, when number portability is just about to come.
Would you agree that they really should have looked at maybe selling it with an operator subsidizing the handset over a 2-year contract, or at least given the option of an unlimited data plan? They've not even given that. They're going to give us 500 MB for a year free every month, which really isn't doing justice to a phone like the iPhone, on which you'll be surfing the internet a lot.
See, that's the thing. First of all, data plans, let me just say this, that if you're talking about nothing but edge access as it exists right now, I think a 500 MB or a 1 GB plan is typically more than enough for most people, because you don't get good speeds. On the other hand, if it were to be 3G, 1 GB is certainly not enough, because you'll exceed that in probably barely 10 to 15 days of usage on 3G, because you are consuming more on the 3G network.
We're going to take a short break right now, but don't go anywhere, because coming up after that, we have an exclusive for you. The first look at a device that's hoping to take some of the drudgery out of preparing for competitive exams and give it the cool of, the Apple iPad phenomenon, or rather the tablet phenomenon. The all-new iProf coming up on the other side of TechnoHolik. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're still watching TechnoHolik, and while you were in the break, I was getting some fairly bad memories of the nightmares that one had studying for competitive examinations in class 11 and 12. And well, that's come back to haunt us with the launch of this device. Going to hit, it won't hit the shelves technically. It'll only be available through this particular company called iProf. It's an interesting device. So before I get to talking with Varun about his thoughts on it, let's quickly just take you through some of the key features of the iProf. Okay, so you take a 7-inch Arcos touchscreen tablet with headphone, mic and USB. You slap on the Android operating system and stuff it with lectures and study material, and voila, you have the iProf. When you boot the device, you'll see a home screen where you can enter a username and a password to access an offline client of iProf's learning management system. So what was the idea behind creating such a device?
Demand for good professors has exceeded. Their salaries have reached into crores, and there's such a shortage in level 2 and level 3 cities that it's not available. So we thought technology is the solution by which we can bring the best education all across the country to every student who needs it and deserves it. That's how we started working on it, and then we created a device which should be usable by all the students.
The dashboard is where all your apps such as the calculator, the media player, quizzes, tests and other academic exercises are located. These are of course subscription-based services dependent on which entrance exam and which subjects you're preparing for. But how exactly is this device better than loading something off the web on a regular notebook?
There will be 3 challenges again. First, you have to, when you load it on the open device, it is like, as I said, likely to pirate it. Secondly, these files are very heavy. 1 hour video is about 80 to 100 MB. So if you start downloading it on your home video, you can spend the whole night downloading a 1 hour video. Our iStudy zones, which we are establishing all across the country, will make possible downloading of these files on this closed device, as you are calling it, which is iProf, very quick.
Lectures and instructions by professors from well-known test prep firm Brilliant Tutorials and other animated videos can be controlled using the touchscreen, and you can rewind, pause and play. The device with content for 3 IIT JEE subjects is priced at approximately 22,000 rupees, and the company says that content for more entrance tests such as medical law and management will soon be included. My first thought is that 20,000 plus for all the subjects and the device itself may not seem much, considering people are willing to shell out much more over 2 years for coaching classes and study material. But at the end of the day, you would have to, think that parents might be a bit skeptical, thinking that their kids will just use this to, do time pass, as they call it, and may not yet view it as a studying device. Do you think mentally, though, we are breaking that barrier? Do you think people will take devices such as these seriously as entrance exam preparation tools?
See, I think it's the same as having a computer. Parents think that that might also be a time pass device for a lot of kids. Some kids make good use of it, some kids don't. At the end of the day, it's about what is it that you want to do with that device. Though, as far as mobile education products are concerned, this is something which I see as a trend nowadays. The most popular and the most expensive application on the iPhone itself is actually a flashcards application for law exams in the US.
Right.
And I think this is a brilliant trend. I think tablets in education make perfect sense to me. And I think good quality software is what's going to make the difference.
Right, but this education space, as far as technology is concerned, is very interesting because it has 2 completely diversionary paths. One, of course, is the fact that education seems a fantastic business. It's a great money spinner. People are willing to, put out tons of money for education. They don't seem to hold back. So you have people who are taking the sort of commercial route to it. And then you have projects like, MIT's open courseware on the web. And very interestingly, recently while I was watching, the IPL on YouTube, I was just seeing the statistics on the side, and it said that the IPL is India's most watched channel, the IPL channel, and then I just clicked on that to see which are the other most subscribed channels, and the number 2 most subscribed channel on YouTube India after the IPL, I'm just going to pull it up, is something called NPTEL HRD, which is essentially the National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, which is a JV of the IITs and the Indian Institute of Science, and that has tons of videos from professors of the IITs and the IISc just been recorded in fairly good format. I would say almost as good as the ones on iProf and free to view on YouTube. So, on one end you would argue that education is great business, but it's also something that a lot of people want to do as a social service free of cost, use the internet to give it to all. So, do you see a dichotomy between the two? If IIT and ISC professors are putting these lectures up free of cost on YouTube, and they obviously seem to be a big hit on par with the IPL, do you think these guys will have competition or they can coexist?
Well, they can coexist and they have to coexist. At the end of the day, people do different things with their time.
Right. So anyway, all I would say that it's pretty interesting that, even in a country like India, where you would argue that since most of these competitive examinations are not even online yet, and we still seem, especially for our public institutions, seem to be a little behind the curve on the technology side. The fact at least that the entrance exam ecosystem is moving towards this technology-based sort of an approach is pretty interesting. So this is an exclusive look at the iProf first on this show, and if you've got people, in the family or you yourself interested in preparing for the competitive examinations in the coming year, you might want to check this out. Just Google iProf and or check out the TechnoHolik blog, and you should be able to see the exclusive video that we just showed you. The iProf is a tablet. If you took a tablet and you had a screen on this with a keyboard, that would be a netbook. This is a notebook. This is an e-book, and there's now something called a smart book. So basically, there are just too many words out there which are confusing people: smart book, netbook, notebook. But Radhika is going to try and cut that clutter a bit by telling us that what are the things you should look at before you go out there and decide to purchase a netbook.
If your life exists on the laptop and you travel around the world, then you don't want it to be unpleasant and very heavy. Now that's where netbooks come in, because they're small, light and fit easily into your bag. Now I'm pretty sure you've heard about netbooks before. But if you're looking to buy a netbook for yourself and can't differentiate between the thousands available there, then today we give you the ultimate netbook buying checklist. And the first one is size. Because yes, size does matter. An average netbook screen size varies from 8 to 10.2 inches and weighs in between 1.2 to 1.5 kilos. Anything more than that is just not worth your money, as weight plays a very important part. You don't want to be stuck with a heavy weight in that bag. Another thing to look out for is screen resolution. That reminds me, what's going on in Grey's Anatomy this week? I'm a complete mini-series junkie. I would rather lose sleep than miss a single episode of 24 or Grey's Anatomy, and that too in HD. They just make your work break so much better. And if you're someone like me, then screen resolution and storage space should be next on your netbook buying checklist. Average screen resolution of a netbook these days is 800 by 480. If your main area of usage is just for some email, blogging or YouTubing, then this is enough. But if you are a movie buff or like to download HD content online, then buying a netbook that supports full HD is your thing. Also remember, storage type matters too. Flash storage for the hardcore compulsive emailers and hard disk drive for all the movie lovers. Let's face it, you're going to be typing on this netbook a whole lot. So when you're buying one, make sure it has nicely spaced keys. Most of these netbooks also have very small touchpads which are going to irritate you no matter what. So you're going to need to use a mouse. Which means you're going to need some ports on that netbook. Which brings us to number 4, ports and connectivity. Your netbook must have at least 3 USB ports. One for an extra mouse, one for a hard drive as these have no CD drives, and one for connecting your small modem USBs. Also look out for an all-in-one card reader for connecting your cameras and other storage devices. As the netbook is supposed to be an internet device, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth is a must. The most important thing on your checklist, price. Make sure you don't pay more than 20,000 rupees for your netbook. Any more than that and you might as well buy a bigger laptop. Also remember, most netbooks also come with Intel processors and Windows 7 as their operating system. There are other operating systems available like the Android OS and Ubuntu, but it's best to stick to Windows 7. And now that you have the entire checklist, why don't you go check out some good netbooks in the market that we thought were worth it. But before that, here's a quick recap of that list, so make sure you have a pen and paper handy this time. So here's the complete checklist. The screen size should be between 8 to 10 inches. Make sure the weight is not above 1.5 kilograms. Screen resolution should be 800 by 480 and above. Choose your storage, flash or hard disk drive. Make sure your netbook has at least 3 USB ports, a card reader and an Ethernet jack. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth is very essential, and not to forget, do not pay more than 20,000 rupees for any netbook. Now that you know all that, let's check out some netbooks. First comes the Olive ZipBook X107H. This netbook comes in some pretty colors like this red one here and runs on an Intel Atom processor. The ZipBook also has a 10.2-inch screen, 1GB RAM, a 160GB hard drive and an integrated webcam. It also has 3 USB ports for all your devices along with a memory card reader. While the build quality could have been better, the killer feature in this netbook is that it comes with a built-in Tata Photon modem with 2 months free subscription and also supports 3G. The Olive ZipBook is available for Rs 20,000. Next is the very stylish MSI Wind U135. This lappy has all the usuals along with an Intel Atom Pine Trail processor for better graphics. The Wind also has all the necessary amount of USB ports and runs on Windows 7, the starter edition. The keyboard is great, has about 250GB of storage space. The screen size is 10 inches and this is one sleek looking netbook. And finally, the newly launched HP Mini 210. This 10.1-incher is very light and runs Intel's Atom N450 processor along with full HD support. It also has the usuals and has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for connectivity, all in just Rs 16,500. But what do you guys think? Tell us on Twitter with some #TechnoHolik tweets. Now go and buy yourself a netbook already. I'll see you next time.
Okay, so we had 4 versions of Radhika there, quite like the Bollywood dance sequences of the 80s and 90s where the heroine would come out in different costumes for every part of the song. But good advice nevertheless, though I'm still, not completely sold on the netbook versus regular laptop debate, because I was looking for something, under say 40K, preferably under 30K for my mother recently. And I realized that, a netbook still may be underpowered for the average kind of features that people want to use, especially something like an optical drive. People still want to use CDs, and not having that may still, be a bit of a downer.
See, I'm a big fan of the small form factor of netbooks, but what I'm not a fan of is the low-powered devices. So I actually prefer the CULV, which basically stands for Core Ultra Low Voltage from Intel. They're basically the lower end of the core CPUs. They typically come in single-core or dual-core versions, and these laptops are probably slightly more expensive than what you see in the netbook framework. But if you have to buy a netbook, today's recommendation for me would be these 3 rules to follow. 1, don't buy a Sony. 2, don't buy a Sony. And 3, don't buy the older generation of the Atom processor, which is the N270. Buy the 450 or above, which is the new form factor, because you get better battery life and obviously you get a slightly better processor performance as well.
When you say that, you're talking about the new, about the Sony Vaio, because they've just launched a new Z series, which seems impressive, but if you have such a gripe against them, you must have a reason. Why do you say that?
Well, the reason is simple. They're trying to sell a netbook for 45,000 rupees to 55,000 rupees. Certainly not worth it for that configuration.
Okay, so Varun seems highly skeptical about the Sony, range of netbooks. So we're actually going to give you one, Varun, and let's see if you change your mind about it, and we'll talk about that next week. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. Varun's going, but you certainly shouldn't stay with us, because after the break, we've got the latest as far as Tech Gyan is concerned, right from Silicon Valley. TechCrunch's Sarah Lacy will be telling us what's on her mind. Welcome back. You're still watching TechnoHolik, and we got a chance to catch up with Sarah Lacy. She's a well-known technology journalist from Silicon Valley, the author of a book on not just Facebook, but the entire Web 2.0 boom in Silicon Valley, and also writes for the world's leading technology blog, TechCrunch.com. She's been in India, and she's been posting regularly on TechCrunch.com about some of her experiences in India and about the tech ecosystem. So we decided to catch up with her right outside the iconic Gateway of India in Mumbai and pick her brains on some of the latest trends in technology as she sees them from her vantage point in Silicon Valley.
think one thing in Silicon Valley that I'm really excited about is this proliferation of tiny devices that do one thing really, really well. For a long time, we were all chasing this vision of the all-in-one device. And we kept trying to cram more and more things on these devices, and it never really worked. I mean, most people I know in the Valley had an iPhone and a BlackBerry and maybe something else. So now I think we're going in the opposite direction, where the Kindle itself is, the best for reading. Or there's a device called the Fitbit that you just put on your belt and it measures every step you take. And people love self-measurement in any way, as we've seen with social media and people counting how many friends they have. That's one. I think mobile is going to continue to be really huge, especially on a global basis, because Android is going to have ripple effects around the world. The Chinese are building out phones at super low cost points that can run video, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I guess third one would be just geolocation and kind of micro-local on the other side of the scale. We've kind of lost this local community with the web getting so big and connecting so many people. So getting it back down to like that neighborhood level and knowing what's going on around you. I just think Windows has always come at the approach from trying to take something really, really big and remove stuff to make it small. And I just don't think that's how you build a mobile phone operating system. I think it's something you build from the ground up. I mean, if you look at how, they haven't been doing so well, but I think the Palm Pre and their approach to their operating system was great. They rethought what it meant to be an operating system. You don't go to the browser. Parts of the browser are embedded in everything you do on the phone. And I think for Microsoft to do well, they really need to fundamentally rethink what is the PC experience and what about that PC experience needs to stay on the PC and there's no reason for it on a phone. And, I just think they've lost the game. They've waited too long. Well, I think the future of the iPad is a little bit uncertain because it's a great, beautiful, elegant solution that's looking for a problem. And we don't exactly know what that problem is. And I think if it's identified, it's going to come from the developers. And right now, there's all these people saying it's a better way to play board games at home, or maybe you could use it instead of a Kindle, or maybe you could have music. But it's like there's not a real clear problem. The way even the MacBook Air solved a problem, the iPod solved a problem, the iPhone solved a problem, all the recent hits out of Apple. So I think that's why there was a little bit of disappointment on the part of all the fanboys. I think people want to see it with at least having a video camera, so you can at least do Skype chats on it. But, barring that, it's going to be the developers that make the day. I think probably netbooks, just because the world is generally looking for an easier, lighter, more portable way to carry around a computer. As fully functional as the iPhone has gotten and the BlackBerry has gotten, you really still need a full computer to do certain things. And I think that's what people are going to want. I think touchscreens are still and tablets are for a certain group of people. I don't see it becoming that hugely mainstream, especially at the price point. And ebook readers, as someone who writes books, I would love if that was the best thing. But I think just because we have a technology format doesn't necessarily mean that suddenly everyone's going to start reading again. I think the good thing about ebook readers is it allows instant purchasing, which we've never had in the book industry.
Well, as we said earlier, you can get all of Sarah's thoughts on the Indian tech scene by logging into techcrunch.com, where she's been posting about her experiences here in India. In the meanwhile, we've completely run out of time on this edition of the show. Thanks so much for watching. Remember, you can get in touch with us either via Twitter. Our IDs are flashing for you on the screen. Just tweet with the word TechnoHolik or #TechnoHolik is the hashtag, or get in touch with us the old-fashioned way, which is email technoholic@indiatimes.com. And of course, keep logging onto the blog at technoholic.com and leaving your comments. Remember, join in next week, but for now, we're going to leave you with some images of technology meeting fashion.